welcome to the Happy Parent Project. Today we're talking all things bone broth with one of my friends, Sharby from the Ancestral Body. Why are we talking bone broth? Because it's so good for you, and I've been bashing on about it for a while now, talking about the immune boosting benefits, but Sharby's going to explain it for us in a little bit more detail about how it helps us with our health and wellness, our skin, our insides and our immune system, and exactly what components of it are really good for us. So listen on to find out why you want to start making bone broth today for you and your family and for your inner beauty. Sharby, how's it going?
Oh, good, Nicole. How are you?
I'm good. So for my followers today, this is Sharby and he's from the Ancestral Body. Sharby is a fellow health coach and he and I studied together. Now, Sharby has a really interesting take on ways of eating well for your body. He follows the ancestral and teaches the ancestral way of eating. So the reason that I've got Sharby here today for us and for you and all my, for my mum followers is because he talks about bone broth. And I've got lots of you asking me about bone broth, how to make it, why do we want to eat it, what's it going to do for our body, and most importantly, how is it going to help us build our immune system and our children's immune system. So, Sharby, can you just tell us a little bit about, the ancestral way of eating?
So the concept is quite simple. Let's get back to basics, get back to eating real, nourishing, whole food, and leave the rest behind. And if we can, have a look and tap into what our ancestors may have eaten when they were at their healthiest, then we're doing ourselves a huge favour.
Perfect. And how does bone broth fit into that then?
Bone broth fits into it perfectly. Like, I think a lot of us, if we remember our grandma's cooking, if you like, or and I'm sure their grandma as well, not that we were around for that, but they used a lot of bone broths and stock, and that's an interchangeable word in a lot of the cooking, whether it was, curries or soups and stews, bone broth was used quite a lot. But also, when we think about ancestral living, and we think about respecting the animal that we've killed for our own nourishment, I believe it really is important to eat nose to tail, and that does include the bones as well. And I think we're paying animals a lot of respect when we use up as much of it as possible.
Definitely. And so when you talk about using the bones, obviously when we make a bone broth, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute about actually how to make the bone broth, but we start with a base of bones. So tell me what's in the bones that is so good for us.
There's quite a bit going on in the bones itself. But look, I could list off up to 50 great benefits of bone broth, but I'll just list off a few to help your audience get started with some base knowledge. But a few of the big ones that I'm really excited about. Number one is glycine, which can really help the liver to detoxify a lot of the toxins that we absorb, just through living in this modern world, and toxins that we come across in the environment, even in cleaning products, and unfortunately even in different foods. That glycine will really help us detoxify. So, yeah, that's a really great reason to get into bone broth. One of the other things that a lot of people get excited about is the collagen content in the bone broth, which is, really exciting when it comes to anti-aging benefits. You talk about clear skin, you talk about, getting rid of wrinkles, instead of injecting things into one's face, you can have, a cup of broth and you're away. I know which one I prefer, that's for sure.
That's a much cheaper option than botox.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And one of the other huge benefits, and first of all, the collagen will help with skin, with nails, with hair, just keeping us young in general. So, that can't be bad.
And that's like a massive thing, I guess, for the mum followers that, after we've had babies, our babies completely, they deplete us massively. And one of the first things that I guess I noticed after having kids was that my hair, my skin, my nails were dry and brittle. And so, yeah, if the collagen can help, that's fantastic.
Oh, it really does. I mean, and the other thing, of course, is gelatin. You know, this is a pretty expensive supplement that people buy a lot of these days, you know, and we're not afraid to spend, you know, 30, 40, 50 bucks a month on gelatin supplements, but you don't need to because, you know, there's plenty of it. It's in abundance in bone broth.
Okay.
You know, and gelatin can really start to heal, you know, what a lot of us now call a leaky gut, you know, or gut permeability. So it can help with things like, you know, constipation in both children and in adults, you know, settle diarrhea, you know, help you with food sensitivities if that's a thing that's starting to appear in your lifestyle. And, you know, really help us avoid autoimmune responses to different foods. And it's something that you, once those things start happening, they can be really a pain in the butt to reverse. So getting on top of that early can be really beneficial for, you know, again, for kids and for adults alike.
Because it starts to line the gut with like a mucus kind of lining, doesn't it? Is that what the gelatin does from the bone broth?
Yeah, it does. And it basically, you know, our gut is permeable by nature. So things are supposed to, you know, nutrients are supposed to absorb through the small intestine and get into the bloodstream. You know, the problem is with you know, the toxins that we take in at the moment, the anti-nutrients that a lot of us eat everyday food can make the gut super permeable. So that means, you know, food particles that are not meant to be in your bloodstream end up in the bloodstream. And gelatin goes a long way to healing the gut, patching it up, if you like, and even replacing some of the microvilli that gets worn away. And some believe lead to, you know, the onset of celiac disease and gluten intolerance.
Okay, fantastic. And what else does it do for us? It sounds amazing.
Yeah, look, one of the big ones for anyone who's physical, I know that a lot of mums as well, you know, you're forever picking up your kids and throwing them around, playing with them sort of in the park. Collagen, as well as being anti-aging, is really great for joint inflammation or lack thereof. You know, it can heal the ligaments. If there's any tension or tears or little rips, it can go to work at healing that. So reducing the inflammation in the body, in the bones and tendons is a really huge benefit for those who want to stay active, whether it's exercise or just everyday movement.
That's fantastic because, I mean, for mums after having, you know, a few children or even after your first child, you can really start to suffer aches and pains, you know, back pain, those sorts of things, because just from carrying children, you know, the pregnancy and that. So that's another benefit. One thing I'd really like to know about is immune system, because that's massive for us mums with constant coughs and colds, and you know, our kids are often on antibiotics, and we're on antibiotics if we're suffering from mastitis and that sort of thing. So tell me a little bit about, you know, how bone broth can support our immune system.
Yeah, well, it absolutely can. I mean, with the long list of, you know, minerals and nutrients that's in there, and especially because it is healing, you know, the gut, you know, a lot of us have had sort of long, you know, as kids, we've had lots of antibiotics sort of handed to us, sometimes unnecessarily and sometimes necessarily. You know, they're not absolutely evil, and you know, but having said that, we can afford to be taking a lot less. Now, when we do that, we actually rid our gut of all the wonderful probiotic activity that's going on in the system. And I mean, when that happens, we are just, you know, we're open to attack from all kinds of nasty viruses. You know, you just walk around the corner and you come home with a cold when your immune system is so depleted. You know, and with kids playing with other kids, you know, in the playground or, you know, in play groups or whatever it is, we've really got to ensure that their immunity is top notch. And unfortunately, we're not giving them that head start that they need by, number one, depleting their gut of all the great probiotic activity, and then number two, doing absolutely nothing to replace that or repairing the gut lining like we should be doing. Again, you know, gelatin is a huge part of that.
And so I guess that's where our grandparents were, you know, using these bone broths and feeding our parents up on it. That's that's where their immune systems were so strong back then. And
well, yeah. And I think about that quite a lot, and I think about how little effort our ancestors actually put in to remaining healthy. I mean, it seems like it's on the forefront of all our minds all the time, where, maybe I'm romanticizing the memories, but it really just felt like we got on with it, and we ate some incredible food. We used the whole animal, we ate the whole plant, whatever it was. And we didn't really pay it much thought other than that. But I suppose now with the introduction and the onset of a lot of toxins in our culture and in our society, we really have to keep our immune system, fighting fit.
Yeah, it has to be top notch, especially with daycare centres and that. These days it's just viruses just rampant. So
if you think about that, if we are, I suppose over medicating with antibiotics when they are not necessary, and then as soon as that child gets better, we send them off to daycare. They have no defense in terms of what's about to come next, and then we go down the route of, okay, well, we have immunizations and we have whatever else, and I know that's a hot topic, and I certainly wouldn't.
Let's not go there today.
with that, but having said that, perhaps there'd be less of a requirement for those things if our immune system was up to the job.
So tell me, how do we get our immune system up to the job then? How do you make a bone broth, and when do you eat it? Do you eat it every day, or how do you eat it? How do we get that into our kids and into ourselves?
Yeah, of course, I don't think that bone broth is the only answer to building immunity. I think it's part of a broader philosophy around health, and I like to include things like probiotic foods, so fermented foods, prebiotic foods as well as some resistant starch in my diet as well. And I certainly advise clients to think about those things also, as well as just generally, keeping the body healthy and happy. But when it does come to broth, the recipe, I've got some going in the background actually, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So timely. But I keep it as simple as possible because I want it to be no fuss, and I don't want any barriers in the way when it comes to making broth. So
what do you got in your broth that's brewing in the background?
Yeah, so again, it's so basic. I'll step you through it now. So if you want to head to your butcher and ask them if they have some marrow bones or some bones for broth, if they mean the same thing. I like to get a mixed bag, so from cows, pigs, lamb, but up to you.
Yep.
You can just stick with beef broth or with chicken broth. It's completely up to you. I do tend to ask my butcher. I use a grass-fed butcher, so instead of a grain-fed butcher. Now, that's not the butcher himself, but rather the animals that they're feeding.
So it doesn't matter what the butcher ate, as long as the animal ate well.
Yeah, well, it looks like some of the butchers have eaten lots and
yeah,
lots of
I reckon.
But, that's another story. Or an organic butcher is really great. So because, we are eating the marrow essentially from those bones, we want to make sure that it's especially low toxin, and grass-fed is the way to go. So she will even chop those up for you on a machine they have there, so you don't have to, do that yourself, which can be a bit awkward. I use a slow cooker. Mine's a 6-litre slow cooker, but, you could also use a huge pot for this. I mean, it's not an exact science. I fill that up with water, throw the bones in there. I put some apple cider vinegar in there as
what
well.
Does that do?
It helps to extract all the minerals from the bones, because that's essentially what we want to be doing.
Okay. And just throw like a tablespoon in of apple cider vinegar?
I throw a few tablespoons in.
Yep.
To be honest, I just kind of splash it around.
Yeah.
I don't measure anything out really when I cook, and I know it's a bit frustrating when I try to put out a recipe.
Nah, that's the best way to do it.
Some people add vegetables like celery, carrot, onion, garlic to that to get rid of some of the sort of potent smell that a broth can have after a while. To be honest, I really love that smell. So
yeah, I love it too.
Yeah, but also those vegetables can add some flavour to it, and also it's adding further vitamins and minerals to the broth. So it won't take long for you to have a quick search for some bone broth. We call it stock here, but I've started calling it bone broth myself. And then I usually leave it in the slow cooker on really low heat for about 2 days.
Yep.
But the thing is, you can just turn your back on it and leave it going. It's a lot safer than having on low simmering heat on the stove for a couple of days. I sort of don't recommend that to people.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's a slow cooker is $40 these days, and it's a really good investment. It's cheaper than a bottle of probiotics. So
exactly right, and it'll certainly help you, retain a lot of your probiotic activity in your gut.
Yeah.
So get a slow cooker. Don't leave your stove on for 2 days. But having said that, when it is on the stove, you usually get away with 24-hour simmer instead because it's a little bit hotter.
Yeah.
Once that's ready to go, I put it in small. I cool it pretty quickly under some. I put the pot in the cold water. I put it in small containers, and I freeze what I'm not going to use in the next few days. And then I just take one of those out. I'll put it in a stew, in a curry, in a soup, or sometimes I just drink it like a cup of soup, and that's me done.
And just going back there, just for my followers, before what you do is you actually throw the bones away and the vegetables and that sort of thing, and then you take off the liquid and use that. Unlike my husband once, who did it for me and threw the liquid out and retained all the bones and meat for me after 36 hours of slow cooking, and I was like, no.
That's great. Look, a lot of people have their own method of doing it. I just run it through a sieve.
Yeah.
When I'm pouring it into the glass jars or even Tupperware. If that's how you want to do it, I don't skim. So once it cools, I don't skim the fat from the top. I like to leave it on.
Yep.
I'm not, especially from grass-fed animals, I'm not afraid of that saturated fat. I quite enjoy it. And actually, before I throw the bones out, I tend to, eat a lot of the meat and fat off the bones. Now that's for some people not that palatable, but for me that's heaven.
Yeah. And that's great. And so, and the way that I use it as well is I use it in soups, risottos, if you're making a lasagna or a spaghetti bolognese, anywhere that it calls for, a cup of stock, you throw in your broth, your bone broth. And and it's just like you, when my kids are sick, I flavour it with a little bit of salt and then give it to them straight to really boost their immune system.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. And look, I think the main thing is that we've all sort of scratched our heads when we looked at stock cubes in the supermarket or powder, and I bet most of your followers have sort of stood in front of that aisle and thought, well, there's just a better option.
What else do I use?
It's kind of all a bit crappy.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, it kind of is. All that stuff, the cubes, and a lot of it's got MSG as well to give it an extra meaty flavour. A lot of it's got table salt added to it, so it's not using a really quality, Celtic sea salt or Himalayan pink or anything like that. So, that anti-caking agent is in there. It's just not giving us health. All it's giving us is a flavour that's meant to be a little bit like the traditional stuff that we can make very easily at home.
And I think it's great that you've, spent time with us today telling us how to get back to one of those traditional methods of making something, because that's really what it's all about, isn't it? We've kind of lost touch with those traditional ways of cooking, and you and I are both trying to get our followers back to that style of cooking so that we're eating health every single day. So
absolutely, I think what is really heartening is when even if it's just somebody following along with the blog or the Facebook page or whatever it is, they'll always send you a message or a photo or just they're making their first broth or their first kombucha or kefir or whatever it might be, and they're just so damn proud of themselves.
Yes.
And I guess it means a lot when those pictures comes through, and I get excited about it too.
Exactly. It's such a rewarding job. So, yeah, thank you for taking the time to tell us your knowledge today about bone broth. And where can my followers find more of you? I know that you do some really exciting stuff on podcasts and all sorts of things. So tell us.
Yeah, there's a few places. Look, I won't list them all out. Perhaps I can give those to you to put in your notes. But, my website is called theancestralbody.com.au. I also have a Facebook page where I post a lot of this information. So it's just /The Ancestral Body. And of course, the podcast has been really exciting with a couple of other Kiwis you'll be pleased to know.
Yay!
and that's called The Primal Shift. And again, you can find that at .com.au and also on Facebook at the Primal Shift. So, lots going on, and I know you have, some pretty awesome stuff going on as well.
Yes, we've got a great year planned, I think. So it's going to be really, really exciting. The Happy Parent Project has got big plans, and hopefully we'll see more of you over here. I know that everyone would love to hear more of what you've got to tell us.
I'd be more than happy to be back. Thank you so muve for having me, Nicole.
No worries, Shabi. You have a wonderful day.
You too.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
助理为您服务，请打热线电话发一个